The night air was sharp with the scent of rain on asphalt, streetlights cutting fractured halos through the mist. Marcus Daniels kept his stride measured, shoulders squared, uniform jacket zipped tight against the chill. He'd just flown home, still smelling faintly of salt water and metal, the Navy clinging to him like a second skin. The cruiser's headlights snapped on behind him, slicing across his shadow. Tires crunched closer. The siren didn't wail, but the sound of the door slamming echoed like a gavel. "Hands where I can see 'em," the officer barked. Voice flat, cold. Marcus froze, pulse hammering. He lifted his palms slowly, calm drilled into muscle from years of training. The cup circled, flashlight jerking over Marcus's face, then his chest. It lingered on the dark skin under the glow. "Walking around here this late, suspicious as hell. What are you really doing in this neighborhood?" Marcus swallowed, heat rising in his throat. His ID was in his pocket, military insignia embossed in steel. He didn't move, he didn't dare. A drop of rain slid down his temple. His jaw clenched. He said nothing. The officer's smirk curled in the light, sharp as a knife. "Men like you don't belong here. One wrong move, and you're done." The flashlight beam jerked down to Marcus's pocket, the ID pressing against fabric like a secret, trying to break free. And then the officer's hand hovered at his holster. The street went silent, except for Marcus's breath. Everything froze on the edge of a trigger pull. Marcus Daniels moved with the gait of a man who had marched deserts, swum oceans, and breathed through storms. But tonight his pace was deliberate, almost fragile. Home was supposed to feel different. Home was supposed to smell of safety, of fried chicken grease from his mother's kitchen, of the rusted basketball hoop on the cul-de-sac. Instead, it smelled of rain and exhaust, and the scrape of tires crawling too slow behind him. A cruiser's beams burned into his back. He didn't turn. His boots struck the pavement in rhythm, steady, like training drills. But the rhythm faltered when the siren chirped, not a full wail, just the warning bite. The car door slammed. "Hands where I can see 'em." The voice was flat, practiced. Marcus raised his palms into the halo of light, his breath fogged in the air. Officer Carter stepped forward, flashlight slicing over Marcus's frame, pausing at the strong shoulders under the jacket, the dark skin that gleamed in the mist. His lip curled. "Late night stroll, huh? Wrong side of town for that." Marcus swallowed hard. "Just walking home." His tone was calm, clipped, the voice of command stripped down to civility. "Home." Carter's laugh was a dry snap. "Funny folks around here been saying someone's been casing houses. Fit your description." Marcus said nothing. The beam lingered over his face. "You deaf?" Carter pressed closer, the smell of cheap cologne mixing with wet asphalt. "Or you just don't feel like answering." Silence stretched. Marcus's chest rose and fell with controlled rhythm, but inside, his pulse hammered against ribs like a drum. "ID." Carter barked. Marcus hesitated. The military steel in his pocket was both shield and target. He knew flashing it now would change everything, but not necessarily in his favor. "ID." Carter repeated, hand twitching near his holster. Marcus slowly reached into his pocket. A shout cracked the night. "Don't." A neighbor on their porch froze, eyes wide. Then they slipped back inside. Screen door rattling shut. The world shrank to the beam of the flashlight. The officer's breath, the weight of silence. Marcus drew out his wallet, hands steady, movements deliberate. He flipped it open, extended it forward. Carter snatched it, eyes scanning, his brow furrowed, his lip twisted. "Marcus Daniels." He dragged the syllables out. "Military ID. Huh? Big shot soldier." His smirk turned thin, sharp. Still just another man, out of place, in the wrong neighborhood. Marcus locked his jaw. Carter shoved the wallet back. "Keep walking. But remember," his voice dropped, poisonous, inches from Marcus's ear. "One wrong move, and you're mine." Marcus walked, shoulders squared, but his throat burned with rage. Behind him, the cruiser idled, then rolled away, taillights bleeding red into the mist. The rain thickened, tapping steady against his hood. Every drop felt like a countdown. This was only the beginning. The Daniels house sat at the far edge of the block, its paint chipped, porch sagging with years, but its lights still warm against the rain-heavy night. Marcus slowed as he approached, every muscle in his back tight from the encounter. He breathed once, twice, steadying himself before stepping onto the wooden steps. The door opened before he could knock. His mother stood there, apron still tied at her waist, a kitchen towel clutched in one hand. "Marcus," she whispered, eyes searching his face. "You're shaking." "I'm fine, Ma." His voice came out clipped, the way it did when he was fighting to hold something down. Her eyes narrowed. Don't lie to me. Carter stopped you again, didn't he? Marcus didn't answer. He brushed past her, the warmth of the living room hitting his skin, soft light spilling across family photos, his graduation, his deployment, the father they'd buried years ago. He set his jacket on the chair and sat heavily, elbows braced on his knees. He's been watching you since the day you came back, she said, closing the door. Everybody knows it. The towel twisted in her hands, her voice lowered. This town's been under his thumb a long time. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter what you've done. Marcus's jaw clenched. He saw again the smirk, the flashlight, the hand brushing the holster. His silence wasn't agreement. It was the only way he knew to keep from breaking something. By morning, the whispers had already started. On the corner by the laundromat, two men leaned against the brick, voices pitched low. Saw Carter stop him last night. Again, man's just walking. Walking while black in this town. That's always a crime. Their eyes cut toward Marcus as he passed. Pity in one, fear in the other. At the bodega, Mrs. Johnson behind the counter gave him a tight smile, sliding his change across the counter like she didn't want to touch his hand. Take care out there. Marcus, she murmured. He met her gaze. I always do. But outside, he caught the side eye from an older white man loading crates into a truck. The man spat, shaking his head. Place was quiet before he came back. He muttered to no one in particular. Marcus felt the heat crawl up his neck. The words weren't even aimed directly at him. They didn't need to be. That afternoon, he sat at his mother's table, the smell of collard greens simmering in the pot. She laid her hand over his. You fought wars, Marcus. You served this country. But don't think for a second that uniform will save you here. He looked at her, eyes dark, voice low. What am I supposed to do? Pretend it doesn't happen. You keep your head down. Her hand tightened. These men don't play fair. They don't care who you are. They'll twist everything. A memory flickered across his mind. Desert heat, the weight of a rifle, brothers at his side. In combat, enemies were clear, rules were written, discipline mattered. Back home, the battlefield was different. Rules bent depending on skin. Head down, he repeated, bitter. I didn't survive war just to bow my head to Carter. His mother's lips pressed thin. She turned back to the stove, stirring the pot. Silence filled the kitchen, heavy as smoke. Evening settled in, street lamps buzzing faint yellow. Marcus sat on the porch steps, watching kids ride their bikes, laughter breaking through the humid air. The teenager from across the street, Jamal, slowed his ride, eyes wide with curiosity. Yo, Mr. Daniels. His voice cracked with youth but carried something sharper. That cop messing with you again. Marcus's gaze held steady. Don't worry about it, kid. I seen it, Jamal pressed. Saw him pull you up last night. Man treats you like dirt, like you ain't nothing. Marcus's jaw ticked. Keep your eyes open, Jamal, but keep your phone down. You don't want that kind of trouble. The boy shrugged. Trouble finds us anyway. He pedaled off, leaving Marcus staring at the cracked pavement, words echoing in his chest. The whispers didn't stop. By the end of the week, they grew louder. Carter's gonna make an example of him. He should have never come. But he thinks being a soldier makes him untouchable. Every word was a stone added to the weight on his shoulders. Inside, Marcus stood before the mirror, hands gripping the sink. His reflection stared back, strong jaw, scar tracing his temple, eyes that had watched men die and cities burn. Yet here, he was reduced to suspicion, rumor, threat. His mother's voice floated from the hall. Marcus, supper's ready. He closed his eyes. In the darkness behind his lids, the flashlight beam burned bright. Carter's voice hissing. One wrong move, and you're mine. The battlefield wasn't overseas anymore. It was here, in every glance, every whisper, every silent neighbor who watched and did nothing. Marcus opened his eyes. The man in the mirror was steady, but the rage under his skin pulsed like a heartbeat. He knew the fight was coming. And this time, there would be no desert, no ocean, no battlefield where enemies wore uniforms. This war would be waged on quiet streets, under buzzing lamps, in the shadow of neighbors who turned away. The grocery store lot gleamed under harsh fluorescent lights, puddles pooling in cracks of broken asphalt. Marcus parked his mother's old sedan, checking the time, just after dusk. He wanted to grab bread, milk, maybe a few cans of beans. Quick in, quick out. But the sound came before he even touched the door handle, the low growl of a police cruiser idling. Tires rolled slow, deliberate. Headlights flared across his windshield. Marcus exhaled. shoulders stiffening. The door slammed. "Step out of the vehicle." It was Carter's voice. Again. Marcus's hands gripped the steering wheel. "Not tonight," he whispered to himself. Before he opened the door, Carter was already close, flashlight bouncing off the hood, beam cutting across Marcus's chest. "License and registration." "I haven't even started the car," Marcus said. "Steady." "You pulled in without signaling." Marcus blinked. "It's a parking lot." Carter smirked. "Violation's a violation." "Papers?" Marcus handed them over slowly, his movements deliberate. The beam of light drilled into his eyes. Behind Carter, a second cruiser rolled up, 2 more officers stepping out, arms crossed, stance wide. A show of force. A couple leaving the store slowed, bags dangling. One woman whispered, "That's him again." Her companion tugged her arm, steering her away. A group of teenagers loitering near the vending machine pulled out phones, cameras raised. Carter noticed, "Put those away." His voice cracked through the lot, sharp, commanding. The kids hesitated. One boy, Jamal, lowered his phone halfway, then lifted it again, defiance in the set of his chin. Carter's head snapped toward him. "You deaf boy." Marcus's stomach tightened. "Leave him out of this," he said firmly. Carter turned back, grin spreading thin. "So you do have a voice." He leaned closer, breath sour. "Maybe you think that uniform you used to wear makes you special. Out here, you're just another suspect." Marcus's jaw locked. "I served this country." The other officers shifted, boots scuffing pavement. One muttered, "Keep it moving, Carter." But Carter ignored him. The beam of the flashlight dragged down Marcus's body, pausing at his hands. "You look tense, hiding something." Marcus kept his voice even. "I've got nothing to hide." Carter reached suddenly, patting down Marcus's pockets with rough slaps. The gesture wasn't procedural, it was humiliation. Bones lifted higher, recording. Jamal's voice carried. "Man didn't do nothing." Carter spun, fury flashing. "Put that damn phone down before you." "What?" Marcus's voice cut through, low, controlled. The lot went still. The other officers froze, caught between their partner's rage and the eyes of the public. Carter's nostrils flared. He shoved Marcus's license into his chest, the edge biting skin. "Consider this a warning. You step out of line again, Daniels, and I'll bury you in paperwork so deep you'll wish you never came back." Marcus caught the license, fingers trembling from rage he refused to show. His silence was sharper than words. Carter leaned in one last time, voice dropping to a hiss. "Soldier or not, you'll always be the enemy here." He turned, barking at the other officers. "Let's roll." Engines growled. Taillights smeared red across the wet lot as both cruisers pulled away. Marcus stood frozen, chest rising heavy. Around him, voices broke the silence. That was messed up. He had no reason. "Man, I got that on video." Jamal stepped forward, phone clutched tight. "I recorded everything. Whole damn thing." Marcus's hand shot out, gripping his shoulder. "Delete it." "What?" "People gotta see this." Marcus's eyes burned into his. "Listen to me. You put that out there. You're not just filming. You're putting a target on your back." Carter doesn't forgive. Jamal's jaw tightened. "Then, let him come for me. Someone's gotta show the truth." Marcus stared at the boy, skinny, barely 16, fire in his eyes. It was like looking at his younger self, before war, before silence became armor. He released his grip. "Be careful, Jamal." The boy nodded once, defiant. "You too, Mr. Daniels." By the time Marcus made it inside the store, whispers had already spread. Eyes followed him through the aisles, some sympathetic, some wary, some turning away completely. He grabbed what he needed, paid in silence, and walked back into the night air heavy with tension. His mother's car felt smaller now, the wheel heavier in his hands. Every mirror reflected more than headlights. It reflected Carter's smirk, the weight of the badge, the message clear. "You don't belong." He drove home slow, the hum of tires loud in the quiet. Behind him, he half expected sirens again. None came, but the war had shifted, and Marcus knew with Jamal's video floating in the boy's pocket, with Carter's threats thick in the air, the next encounter would not end in silence, it would end in fire. The precinct smelled of coffee, gone bitter and paper too long stacked in dusty trays. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, harsh and steady, as Marcus sat in the narrow chair across from the desk sergeant. His shoulders filled the small space, posture rigid, as if he were back in formation. The sergeant flipped through his notes with all the energy of a man shuffling cards, not lives. "So, Officer Carter conducted a stop." Marcus's voice stayed controlled. He conducted 2 stops, both without cause, both escalating. The sergeant's pen scratched lazily against paper. And you claim he searched you? I don't claim it. He did. Any contraband found? Marcus's eyes darkened. You know the answer. The man sighed, glancing at the clock. Mr. Daniels, these procedures don't call it procedure. Marcus leaned forward, heat threading his words. Procedure doesn't include harassment. It doesn't include humiliating someone in front of their neighbors. It doesn't include patting me down in a grocery lot like I'm a criminal. The sergeant's gaze flickered, then dropped to his paper. His voice shifted into something rehearsed. You can submit a formal complaint. Internal Affairs will review. Marcus felt the phrase hit like a wall of ice. He knew what it meant. Nothing. He filed the paperwork anyway, pen heavy in his hand, words carved in block letters. He described every word, every gesture, every flash of Carter's smirk under the rain. The form slid across the desk like an afterthought as he stood. Another officer walked by, glancing at him with thinly veiled disdain. Heard Carter had to check you last night. Word is you mouthed off. Marcus's jaw tightened. Word is wrong. The officer shrugged. Word travels faster than truth. At home, his mother listened as he recounted the trip to the station. She stirred her tea without sipping, eyes tired. They'll bury it, she said flatly. They always do. Marcus paced the kitchen, agitation restless in his bones. I served this country. I bled for it. You think I'm going to sit here and let them strip me down like this? She looked up, sharp. You think that uniform protects you now, out there? You're just another black man against a badge. They don't care where you've been. Her words stung because they rang true. 2 days later, the letter came, an official seal stamped on cream paper, wording stiff, impersonal. After review, the department finds no violation of policy. Officer Carter's actions are consistent with standard procedure. Marcus read it once, twice. His hand trembled as he folded the letter back into its envelope. His chest felt hollow. On the porch, neighbors watched him through curtains. A few nodded, sympathy in their eyes, but no voices raised. Silence was safer. Silence was survival. He sat on the steps, the paper crumpled in his fist, and listened to the crickets scrape through the night air. Every sound seemed sharper, every silence louder. That weekend, at the diner, whispers threaded through the booths. Did you hear? Complaint dismissed. Of course it was. Can't fight the system. The words carried more resignation than shock. To them, it was the natural order of things. To Marcus, it was a chain tightening around his throat. When he stood to leave, Carter was there, by the door, in uniform, leaning against the frame with a casualness sharpened into menace. Afternoon, soldier. Marcus's jaw flexed. He pushed past without speaking. Carter's chuckle followed him out into the sunlight. Paperwork won't save you. Told you one wrong move. That night, Marcus lay awake in his childhood room. Posters on the wall faded with time, medals tucked in drawers. He stared at the ceiling, heart pounding with the rhythm of his suppressed rage. In Iraq, silence had meant survival. On missions, silence meant discipline. Here, silence meant surrender, that the system wasn't broken. It was working exactly as designed, to shield Carter, to bury truth, to grind men like Marcus into silence. But silence had a cost. And Marcus felt the weight of it pressing, suffocating, until he knew, if he stayed quiet, Carter wouldn't stop. He never would. The war wasn't across the ocean anymore. It was here. And the institution had already chosen its side. The sun pressed heavy against the cracked sidewalks, heat warping the air. Marcus jogged his usual route, sweat sliding down his temples, headphones tucked in but silent. He didn't need music. His pulse was rhythm enough. The run cleared his head, sharpened the static that had been building since the letter of dismissal. Then he heard it, raised voices, sharp, commanding, a child's protest, thin but fierce. Marcus slowed, turning the corner. There it was, on the corner by the liquor store. Carter had Jamal pinned against the hood of a cruiser. The boy's bike lay crumpled in the street, front wheel still spinning. Carter's forearm dug into Jamal's back, forcing his cheek against hot metal. 2 other officers stood nearby, watching but not moving. Marcus's chest went tight. Stay down, boy, Carter barked. I didn't do nothing. Jamal's voice cracked, high with fear. I didn't steal nothing. Carter shoved harder. Shut your mouth. Marcus's feet carried him forward before he decided. Let him go. His voice rang out like steel. Carter's head snapped up. Sweat glistened on his brow. eyes narrowing into a smile that wasn't a smile at all. Well, if it isn't our neighborhood hero. Marcus strode closer, body taut. He's a kid. You've got no cause. Carter pressed his weight into Jamal harder, eliciting a muffled cry. Kid fits the description. Store reported a theft. Can't be too careful. The shop owner stood nearby, shaking his head nervously. I didn't say it was him. Carter ignored him, his gaze locked on Marcus. You got a problem, soldier. Marcus's fists clenched at his sides. You know damn well he didn't do anything. Let him up. The two officers shifted, hands near their belts, eyes darting between the men. The air grew taut, brittle. Jamal's breath hitched. Mr. Daniels, his eyes pleaded, wide and wet. Marcus took another step. Release him now. Carter chuckled, dark and low. See, this is what I like. You thinking you've still got command. But here, I give the orders. The bystanders gathering on the sidewalk fell silent. Phones appeared, cameras raised. Carter noticed his jaw tightened, but his grip didn't loosen. Marcus's voice dropped, calm as combat. You're making a mistake in front of witnesses. Carter leaned close, lips curling. You think I care about witnesses? This town belongs to me. The words hit Marcus like a blade. He moved, not rash, not wild, controlled, deliberate. Marcus stepped in and gripped Carter's wrist. His training surged through his muscles, guiding his hold. He twisted just enough to break Carter's leverage without harm, forcing his arm off Jamal's back. The boy gasped, stumbling free. The crowd erupted. Gasps, murmurs, a woman's sharp cry. Don't touch me. Carter roared, yanking his arm back. His hand darted for his holster. Marcus raised both palms instantly, voice booming. I'm unarmed, and you know it. The other officers froze, uncertainty flashing in their eyes. One muttered, Carter don't. But Carter's face was crimson, veins pulsing. Assault on an officer. You all saw it. Marcus's voice thundered back. What you saw was me stopping a man from crushing a child. Jamal shouted, trembling but defiant. He's lying. Mr. Daniels saved me. Phones tilted higher, capturing every angle. The truth had witnesses now, recorded in pixels and voices. Carter's fury coiled tight, but he didn't draw. The crowd had grown a dozen, then 20. Cars slowed, drivers craning necks. Marcus stepped back slowly, palms still raised. His chest heaved, but his gaze never wavered. You're not above the law, Carter. Not anymore. Everyone sees you now. For the first time, doubt flickered across Carter's features. Not remorse, not shame, but calculation. He spat to the side, eyes darting to the cameras, then to Jamal, then back to Marcus. Get the kid out of here, he snapped to the other officers. We'll deal with this later. But the tone had shifted. Authority fractured. The weight of eyes on him pressed harder than Marcus's grip had. Carter shoved past, climbing into the cruiser. His door slammed, engine roaring. The car peeled off, taillights vanishing down the street. The second cruiser followed reluctantly. Silence lingered, heavy and charged. Then the crowd erupted. That cop's losing it. Daniels stood up to him. Did you get it on video? Jamal clutched his phone tight, hands shaking. His voice cracked as he looked up at Marcus. I got it all. The whole thing. Marcus's chest rose and fell, adrenaline cooling into exhaustion. He laid a hand on the boy's shoulder. You okay? Jamal nodded quickly, though tears streaked his face. Yeah, you saved me. Marcus's grip tightened. Protective. No, you saved yourself. You kept your eyes open. He looked at the phone in Jamal's hand, then back at the growing crowd. His voice dropped. Now the world will see. That night, Marcus sat on the porch, the air thick with cicadas. His mother hovered in the doorway, worry etched deep. You can't keep going toe-to-toe with him, she said softly. He'll come for you harder. Marcus stared out into the dark street. He already has. The difference is, people are watching now. The glow of Jamal's phone across town confirmed it. The video was already spreading, faces lit by screens, voices buzzing in chat groups. The truth was out. But Marcus knew exposure wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Carter wouldn't forgive humiliation. Not in front of cameras. Not in front of the town he believed he owned. The silence of the precinct, the whispers of neighbors, the weight of every stare on his skin. It all pointed to one truth. The battle lines were drawn. The video spread before the sun did. By morning, Marcus's name was threaded through group chats, whispered at breakfast counters, muttered in church foyers, clips replayed across glowing screens. Carter's forearm crushing Jamal, Marcus's controlled grip breaking it away, the boy gasping free, Carter's hand twitching toward his weapon. The scene was raw, unpolished, undeniable. Jamal's trembling voice was captured too. He's lying. Mr. Daniels saved me. It was enough. Enough to light the fuse. At the precinct. Carter slammed his fist against the locker, metal reverberating. The video looped across a news site on his phone. His name trended, but not with praise, not with fear. Out of context, he muttered. His reflection in the steel sneered back. They don't know what they saw. But he knew. They'd seen exactly what happened, and they'd seen Marcus calm, in control, the one who stopped him, the one who made him look weak. A sergeant stepped into the room, stiff and guarded. Captain wants you in his office. Carter's teeth ground. Of course he does. Across town, Marcus tried to focus on work at the community center, but whispers followed him. Mothers approached with hushed gratitude. Fathers clasped his hand too firmly, as if siphoning courage. Teenagers hovered, wide-eyed, recording him on their phones. You're a hero, man. You showed him. Carter won't touch that kid again. Marcus deflected every word. Hero wasn't what he felt. What he felt was pressure, thick and suffocating. Carter wasn't retreating. Men like him didn't retreat. They regrouped. He sat in his office, blinds drawn, Jamal's video replaying muted on his laptop. He studied Carter's face, frame by frame, the sneer, the flash of panic when cameras rose, the calculation just before retreat. This wasn't finished. It was escalation. That night, Carter faced Captain Reyes in the precinct office. The blinds were closed, the desk lamp throwing hard shadows across stacks of paperwork. Reyes's voice was clipped. It's everywhere. Cities breathing down my neck. Mayor called twice already. Carter stood stiff, arms crossed. It's propaganda. That boy resisted. Daniels interfered. Classic case of assault on an officer. Reyes slammed a folder down. That line might have worked 10 years ago, not with a dozen cell phone angles plastered online. He leaned forward, voice dropping. You're a liability. Carter's jaw locked. I've given 20 years to this department. I run these streets. No, Reyes corrected coldly. You ran them. Now you're one headline away from taking us all down. The words stung deeper than Carter let show. He stood frozen, heat crawling up his neck. So what? You're hanging me out to dry. Reyes didn't answer. His silence was answer enough. By the weekend, Marcus's porch was no longer quiet. Reporters camped at the curb, cameras flashing when he stepped outside. He ignored them, jaw set. Moving from door to car to building without acknowledgement. Inside the center, Jamal sat stiffly at a table, backpack at his feet. Marcus crouched down, voice even. How are you holding up? Jamal fiddled with the straps. Everyone's talking about me. Teachers, kids at school. Some say I'm lying, but the video's real. His throat bobbed. Carter knows where I live. Marcus steadied his gaze. He won't touch you again. But in his gut, Marcus knew promises were fragile things. Online, the debate fractured into noise. Marcus Daniels is a hero, standing up to racist cops. Don't be fooled. Ex-soldier attacked an officer. He's dangerous. Finally, someone caught Carter in the act. Been terrorizing kids for years. This is anti-police garbage. They don't know the whole story. Every clip replayed with commentary layered over it, spliced into feeds with hashtags, weaponized by both sides. Marcus's face became an emblem to some, a symbol of defiance, to others, a threat. None of them knew him. None of them knew the quiet weight pressing down when the camera shut off. Late that night, Marcus sat alone in the darkened gym of the center. Lights hummed overhead, the air faintly smelling of rubber mats. He remembered sand, dust, adrenaline, the clarity of combat. Enemies were enemies, allies were allies, rules were clear. Here, the battlefield was shadows and whispers, cameras instead of rifles, narratives instead of orders. His phone buzzed, a new message. No name, just words. You won't be able to protect them all. Marcus stared at the screen, muscles tightening. The battlefield had just shifted again. Carter sat in his truck on the edge of town, headlights off. A bottle rested between the seats, untouched. His fists tapped against the steering wheel, restless. They'd taken his control. They'd smeared his name. And Daniels was the reason. He scrolled the video again, jaw grinding with every replay. The sneer of the crowd, the way the boy clung to Daniels's side. Control wasn't lost, Carter told himself. It was waiting for the right strike. He turned the ignition, engine rumbled low. Time to remind them, he muttered, voice dark. Marcus felt the weight of the town shifting. Doors that once closed on him now cracked open. Faces that once avoided him now sought him. Respect, fear, expectation. It was all there, in every glance. But the message on his phone sat heavier than all of it. You won't be able to protect them all. He pocketed the device, eyes narrowing into the night. Exposure had made him visible, but it had also painted a target. The war was no longer about one boy, one cop, or one street dot. It was about who owned the truth. And Marcus knew the next move would not be on camera. The wind outside rattled the thin glass of the community center's windows. Marcus sat at his desk, the message still glowing on his phone. You won't be able to protect them all. It repeated in his mind like a drumbeat, not a threat aimed at him directly at the community, to Maul, the kids, anyone who had stood too close when Carter's authority cracked. Marcus leaned back, eyes narrowing, combat instincts stirred in his chest. This wasn't random harassment, it was strategy. Carter wasn't finished. He was repositioning. The first sign came 2 nights later. Patrol cars began circling the block of the community center more frequently, spotlights dragging across walls. Officers stepped out, questioning teenagers hanging near the entrance, writing bogus citations for loitering or noise. One evening, Marcus walked outside to find a small group of mothers clustered together, voices hushed. They pulled my son over just 2 streets away, one said, wringing her hands, made him empty his backpack in the rain. They said they were checking for weapons, another added, her voice tight. He had homework, that's all. Marcus's jaw tightened. It's intimidation. Carter's pulling strings. The women looked to him as if he had answers. Marcus gave none. Answers weren't enough. At the precinct, Carter watched reports cross his desk. Petty charges, curfew violations, a constant drip of paper meant to send a message. Marcus couldn't shield anyone. One officer hesitated. You sure about this, Sarge? It's looking targeted. Carter's stare froze him in place. Follow orders, or do you want to end up on the wrong side of this circus too? The younger man swallowed hard. Yes, sir. Carter leaned back, satisfied. Good. Let Daniels see what happens when he paints a target on his back. The next blow landed harder. Marcus arrived at the center one morning to flashing lights. A patrol car idled out front. 2 officers stood with Jamal's mother, who looked pale, clutching her coat. What's happening? Marcus demanded, striding forward. One officer turned, lips curling. Kids being questioned. Possible vandalism. Vandalism. Marcus's voice sharpened. They gestured toward a brick wall nearby. Spray-painted letters sprawled across the surface. Pigs die. Marcus's eyes cut to Jamal, who stood pale and trembling. He didn't do that. The officer shrugged. Witness saw him, in the area. That's a lie, Jamal whispered, voice cracking. Marcus stepped between them, his voice steel. He's coming inside. Now. The officers exchanged glances. One smirked. Careful, Daniels. Starting to sound like obstruction. Marcus locked eyes, unflinching. Then, arrest me, because you're not taking him. Silence stretched. Finally, the officers turned away with a mutter. This isn't over. Marcus guided Jamal inside, shoulders taut. The game had shifted from intimidation to entrapment. Carter was planting evidence now. That night, Marcus called a meeting at the center. Parents, teens, elders, the room filled, buzzing with anger and fear. They're tightening the noose. One father spat, pulling kids over, setting them up. It's only a matter of time. Marcus stood at the front, voice steady though, the weight pressed heavy. They want us scared. They want us scattered. That's how Carter keeps control. So what do we do? Someone shouted. Marcus paused. Memories of briefing rooms flickered in his mind. Soldiers waiting for orders. He swallowed. We document everything. Phones up, eyes open, no one alone, at night. If Carter wants to escalate, we'll meet him with truth. A murmur swept the crowd. Some nodded. Others looked doubtful. But Marcus held their gaze. He wasn't promising safety, only resistance. Carter heard about the meeting before it ended. Word traveled fast. He sat in his truck again, this time parked under a flickering streetlight. His phone buzzed with updates from officers still loyal to him. Daniels was rallying them, preaching about truth, about justice. Carter's lips curled. Truth is what people believe, and I'll make them believe. He dialed a number. A voice answered, low and cautious. Time to remind Daniels who runs this town, Carter said. I want him discredited, destroyed. I don't care how. The retaliation struck deeper the next day. Marcus walked into the center to find police waiting again. Not for Jamal this time. For him. Marcus Daniels, one officer asked, holding out a folded sheet. You're under investigation. Allegations of assault and intimidation. Need you to come with us. Gasps filled the lobby. Children clung to their parents. Phones shot into the air, recording. Marcus's pulse stayed steady, though heat flared in his chest. On whose word? The officer smirked. Anonymous tip. Said you threatened kids. Rough handling. It was a lie. Transparent, but lies written on paper carried weight. Marcus glanced at the watching eyes. The phones capturing everything. Slowly, deliberately, he raised his hands. I'll go, but this isn't truth. This is fear dressed up as law. The crowd erupted as they let him out. Some shouted in anger, others in disbelief. Jamal broke from his mother's grasp, yelling Marcus's name until his voice cracked. In the interrogation room, Marcus sat across from Detective Halloran, one of the few not firmly under Carter's thumb. Her voice was quiet but sharp. You know why you're here. I know why Carter wants me here, Marcus corrected. Halloran leaned forward. They're building a case. Thin, but enough to drag your name through mud. Carter's desperate. Marcus's eyes narrowed. Desperate men are dangerous. Halloran didn't argue. She slid a file across the table. Look at this. Complaints piling up from your community. All fabricated, but together, it paints a picture. Marcus scanned the sheets. Words leaped out. Aggressive, threatening, violent. A narrative stitched together. Halloran's voice dropped. If you don't counter this, Daniels, Carter, wins. Not in the street. On paper. Marcus sat back, fists tightening. This was the war now, fought in reports and headlines. That evening, Marcus walked free. The investigation wasn't over, but the recording of his calm surrender already circulated online. Narratives clashed again. Navy SEAL, arrested for threatening kids. Hero targeted in smear campaign by corrupt cop. Marcus stood on his porch, staring at the swarm of lights and cameras. Inside, his phone buzzed again. Another message. This ends with you in chains. Or, a grave. Marcus clenched the device until plastic creaked. The retaliation was no longer hidden. Carter was done with shadows. He wanted war in the open. Marcus knew what came next. The question was whether the town was ready for it. The town boiled by dawn. The community center steps were lined with candles, hand-lettered signs, and huddled bodies demanding answers. Marcus's arrest hadn't broken the spirit. It had sharpened it. Every hour, more people arrived, voices rising in a single refrain. We saw the video. We know the truth. Marcus stood at the second-floor window, staring down at the crowd. Their chants carried up like a tide. For the first time since this war began, he wasn't alone. But he also knew Carter wasn't finished. Carter would not bow to voices in the street. He'd try to silence them. At the precinct, Carter sat in the captain's chair uninvited, feet kicked up on the desk. Captain Reyes stormed in, face taut. Get out of my chair. Carter smirked. It's practically mine anyway. You've seen the mess. Daniels has this town eating out of his hand. Reyes's jaw clenched. You're not helping. Oh, I'm helping, Carter said smoothly, because when this explodes, and it will, they'll need someone willing to put the hammer down, not someone wringing their hands. Reyes leaned over, voice low. You've already destroyed yourself, Carter. One more step, and it won't just be Daniels coming for you. It'll be the whole city. Carter's smile thinned. Then, let them come. Night fell heavy. The crowd outside the center swelled. Candles burned against the dark. Phones lit the air. Chants echoed down the block. Marcus stood at the entrance, flanked by Jamal and a line of parents. His voice carried steady over the noise. They want to paint us as criminals. They want to break us apart. But we've seen the truth. We hold the truth. And tonight, they don't get to bury it. The crowd roared. From the shadows across the street, Carter watched, his pulse thudded with fury. This wasn't just defiance anymore. It was spectacle, and every spectacle needed an ending. He pressed the radio on his belt. Move in. Police cruisers rolled in, red and blue slicing through candlelight. Officers spilled out, shields and batons at the ready. The crowd stiffened. Phones rose instantly, dozens of lenses capturing every movement. Marcus stepped forward, arms raised. Peaceful. Keep it peaceful. An officer barked orders through a bullhorn. Disperse immediately. This is unlawful assembly. The chants grew louder instead. Fear twisted into resolve. Jamal clutched Marcus's sleeve, whispering, they're gonna hurt us. Marcus bent close, his voice firm but calm. Not tonight. Not while they're watching. He gestured to the sea of cameras. eyes on them. That's our shield. Carter strode forward, shoving past his men, bullhorn in hand. This ends now, Daniels. You're inciting a riot. Marcus's eyes locked on him across the flashing lights. His voice cut through the noise, raw and steady. I'm protecting them from you. The crowd erupted, chants swelling louder. Phones zoomed in on Carter's face, catching every twitch, every bead of sweat. You're finished, Carter, Marcus said, voice like a blade. Everyone sees it now. For a moment, Carter froze. His grip tightened on the bullhorn. His authority, the weapon he had wielded so long, cracked under the weight of 1,000 eyes. But desperation clawed at him. He drew his pistol, raising it toward Marcus. Gasps tore through the crowd. The world slowed. Jamal cried out. Mothers screamed. The crowd surged back, phones trembling in hands. Marcus stood unflinching, every instinct screaming at him to move, to disarm, to strike. But he didn't. Not yet. Not with the world watching. Instead, he raised his voice, steady as stone. This is who you are. A man with a badge who fears the truth so much he points a gun at it. The silence that followed was electric. Even Carter's own men hesitated, their grips loosening on shields and batons. Carter's hand shook. His eyes darted not at Marcus, but at the cameras. The red dots of recording lights glared back at him, like judgment itself. Put it down, one officer muttered. Sarge, put it down. But Carter's pride burned hotter than reason. He screamed, voice breaking. You don't own me. His finger twitched. Marcus lunged. The gun fired into the air. The crowd shrieked, scattering. Phones shook violently, still recording. In one swift movement, Marcus twisted Carter's arm, sending the weapon clattering across pavement. The two men locked, struggle, raw and brutal under flashing lights. Shouts erupted. Officers swarmed, but not at Marcus, at Carter. Hands yanked Carter backward, pinning him against the hood of a cruiser. His own men. You're done, Sarge, one said flatly, wrenching the cuffs over his wrists. Carter thrashed, spit flying. You cowards. He's the criminal. He's the threat. But the crowd's roar drowned him out. Chants thundered. We saw it. We saw it. Phones filmed every second. Carter's face twisted with rage. His wrists bound in steel. Marcus stood in the center of it all, chest heaving, eyes locked on Carter's. This was your reckoning, he said quietly. So only Carter could hear. By dawn, the footage had spread worldwide. News anchors spoke of a disgraced officer caught drawing his weapon on an unarmed veteran in front of dozens of witnesses. Commentators dissected every frame. Hashtags surged, but Marcus felt no triumph. He sat in the quiet of his office, blinds drawn, listening to Jamal's soft breathing as the boy finally slept on the couch. Outside, the town celebrated, but inside, Marcus's hands trembled slightly, the adrenaline refusing to leave his veins. He had won the battle. Carter was finished, but scars were already etched in him. In Jamal, in every parent who had clutched their child tighter when the gun came up. Poetic justice had been delivered, but justice was never free. Marcus leaned back, staring at the ceiling. The cost was written in the silence between heartbeats. Morning sunlight washed the town in pale gold, but the streets still bore the echoes of the night before. Candle wax hardened on the pavement, signs left behind on sidewalks, scorch marks where flares had fizzled out. Inside his cell, Carter sat hunched on a metal bench, hands clasped so tightly the knuckles whitened. He replayed the moment over and over, the crowd's roar, the cuffs snapping around his wrists, Marcus's voice cutting through like a blade. You're done. It wasn't just words, it was a verdict. For the first time in his career, Carter realized there would be no salvaging this. No union rep could spin the footage. No blue wall could stand against thousands of witnesses. He wasn't feared anymore. He was exposed. Across town, Marcus stood on his porch, reporters thronging the street, their microphones thrust forward, questions flying. Mr. Daniels, how do you feel after Carter's arrest? Do you think this will lead to real reform? Do you see yourself as a hero? Marcus's voice was low, even. This isn't about me. It's about what we all saw, about what we won't let happen again. He turned, ignoring the shouts that followed. Inside, Jamal sat at the kitchen table, shoulders slumped. The boy looked older somehow, as if the week had carved years into him. Marcus sat across from him, you holding up. Jamal's eyes flicked to him, then back to the tabletop. Everyone keeps saying it's over, but it doesn't feel over. Marcus nodded slowly, because for you, it isn't. What happened doesn't just vanish because Carter's gone. Jamal's throat bobbed. I can't stop hearing it. His voice, the way he grabbed me. Marcus's chest tightened. He reached across the table, steadying the boy's trembling hands. That's the scar. But scars don't mean you're broken. They mean you survived. The community center was fuller than ever. Volunteers streamed in, parents and elders meeting, young people buzzing with cautious hope. One elder, Mrs. Collins, gripped Marcus's arm as he entered. You've given us more than protection. You've given us proof. Marcus shook his head. Proof doesn't heal overnight. You've got to keep building. Keep watching. Don't let them rewrite it when the cameras move on. Her gaze lingered on him, sharp and knowing. And you, what about your healing? Marcus didn't answer. He slipped inside, his silence speaking louder than any words. On the local news, footage of Carter being led into court played on repeat. His lawyer argued for release on bail, citing years of service, but the prosecution painted him as a threat, a man who abused power until it snapped in public view. The judge's gavel fell hard. Bail denied. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Carter's face twisted, veins straining against his temples. His eyes darted to the cameras in the back, but this time, the cameras weren't allies, they were executioners. He was no longer Officer Carter, just another man in a jumpsuit, stripped of the badge he had used as armor. That night, Marcus sat in the dim gym of the community center, the echo of a bouncing basketball filling the air. Jamal dribbled, shooting clumsily at the hoop, his laughter, shaky but real, lifted for the first time in days. Marcus leaned against the wall, exhaling slowly. Halloran stepped into the doorway. Figured I'd find you here. Marcus turned, checking if I've skipped town. She smirked faintly. Checking if you're breathing. You look like you've been carrying the whole world. Feels like it, Marcus admitted. Halloran stepped closer. Carter's finished. You've done what no one else could. But don't think this war is over. One man fell. The system that built him still stands. Marcus's gaze followed Jamal's arc as the ball swished through the net. His voice was quiet. Then we keep fighting. Smarter, louder, but not like him. Never like him. Later, walking home, Marcus paused at the corner where Carter had first shoved him against the cruiser. The asphalt gleamed under the streetlight. Ordinary now, but memory made it heavy. He closed his eyes, hearing again the click of cuffs, the hiss of Carter's voice. People like you don't belong here. Marcus exhaled. I belong. We all do. The words weren't for Carter anymore. They were for himself, for Jamal, for anyone who still doubted. The weeks rolled on. Investigations expanded beyond Carter. Other complaints surfaced. Long-buried cases reopened. For the first time in years, families who had stayed silent stepped forward. Carter had lit the fire, but Marcus's stand had fanned it into something bigger. Still, the cost lingered. Jamal startled at sirens. Parents gripped their children tighter at the sight of a patrol car. Marcus woke in the night, sweat damp on his skin, the phantom weight of a pistol leveled at his chest. Poetic justice had been served, but justice never erased the scars. One evening, Marcus sat with Jamal on the center steps, watching the sun sink. The boy leaned against him, eyes heavy with exhaustion. Do you think it's really over? Jamal asked softly. Marcus looked at the horizon, where shadows stretched long across the street. It's never over, he said. But that doesn't mean we stop living. We keep pushing, keep building. We take the pain, and we make it fuel. Jamal was quiet, then nodded, as if settling the words into himself. Marcus placed a steady hand on his shoulder. They wanted us afraid. We're still here. That's the victory. Carter's name faded from headlines. His trial loomed, but the spectacle had already passed. He was no longer a symbol of power. He was a warning. Marcus, too, faded from the spotlight. Reporters found new stories, new scandals, but in the quiet corners of the community, his name lingered, not as a hero, not as a savior, but as proof that standing up mattered. That night, the gym echoed again with laughter, sneakers squeaking, voices rising. Life crept back in. Marcus leaned against the wall, watching, a faint smile pulling at his mouth. The cost had been high, the wounds deep, but in the rhythm of the bouncing ball, in Jamal's laughter cutting through the air, Marcus felt it. Not victory, not closure, but resilience. And resilience, he knew, was stronger than fear.